Welcome back, Curious Hearts. I'm Vera. Together, in every episode, we get to explore what it is we really believe, how we practice, and we get to meet people who are on their own spiritual path. Together, we begin.
I am just so excited. I'm so excited to see your face. I'm so excited to hear your updates. I'm so excited for everybody who's listening to get to know you.
Oh, likewise. I am so excited to be present with you and to share whatever I'm bringing with your audience, with your listenership. I'm thrilled. I'm so honored that you thought to ask me. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Oh my gosh, what a treat. So I should introduce you. Jess Chang is a community minister, a reproductive chaplain, and is currently serving at the First UCC Church in Columbus, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And we met some period of time ago that I will not name. We knew each other in college and very different lives. And I just feel like I've had the great privilege of staying in loose touch with you and watching your journey. And I find your work really inspiring every time I talk to you.
Oh,
so
Vera.
I just can't wait to hear. I said before we started recording, you were one of the first people I reached out to interview. And because you were moving right from Boston to Columbus, I didn't want to pressure you or push to get on your schedule. So I've been looking forward to this conversation for months. Truly.
Oh, wow. It is a shared and equal pleasure to know you and to be a part of your life to the extent that you will allow me and I am able to, and to speak with you today. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start the place that I start with everybody, which is tell me a little bit about what your spiritual and or religious life looked like when you were a kid, like in your family.
I am an only child, and my parents, I think, were raised in homes that were nominally religious, I would say, but not necessarily. I think that's the only way I can say that, nominally religious, which is to say the adults and the other children in the house would participate in organized religion because it was the thing that you did. But I don't know how much it was out of a genuine expression of a personal relationship with a deity or with a religious tradition. It might just have been the societal norm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think I go back that far because the way that I was raised, faithfully, religiously, spiritually, feels generational. And so when my parents started planning a family, I think religion became important in a way that it maybe wasn't important to either of my parents as individuals, but it became important. So the house that I was raised in was very religious. I would use words like strict. I would use words like rigid. It's hard to say these things out loud because words like these aren't necessarily kind, sweet, generous words, and they didn't feel kind and sweet and generous, but they felt accurate.
Yeah.
So I grew up in, I would say, a conservative Black Christian home. When I would ask my parents, what kind of church is this? What are we doing? Where are we going? They would always say it's non-denominational. But knowing what I know now about the history and movement of Protestant Christianity in the United States, I would not call these churches non-denominational. I would call them Black evangelical churches. I would call them parts of the Church of God in Christ, which is a Black Protestant denomination. Some of them were Baptist. They feel similar in the idea of having very strict, rigid boundaries around social behavior, as well as theology, honestly, as well as dogmatic theological practice. But they also felt sort of different in the way that many Christian churches are different in how they do worship on a Sunday morning, right?
Sure.
I have memories of the first church that I ever remember attending, which was called Fosdick Street Church of God. It was in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I don't know if it's still there or what that building is now, if it's still a church or if it's like condos or a community center, you know.
Right.
But I remember in my childhood, that building was enormous. It had these old, dark wooden pews with maybe like red velvet on the seats, but like the backs were really wooden. And I remember it had a big organ at the back of the chancel. And there was this like trompe l'oeil painting of a scroll on the back wall that was a quote from a verse in the letter of James to the churches that said like faith without works is dead or something like that. It was a much older, it was absolutely a King James translation of that verse, but that was the verse that it was. And I just remember it feeling so enormous. Like the church just felt like this big, serious place. And big and serious, I think, were very, very much parts of my takeaway of what Christianity was, what spiritual practice was growing up.
But it also sounds like big and serious is a really nice, I mean, they couple well with like rigid and strict.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Big, serious, rigid, strict. Like this is, we don't fuck around here.
That's exactly right. Oh my gosh. Like this, I remember when I was maybe like a high school student, attending a Vineyard church. Vineyard is one of these, now this I would call non-denominational, sort of contemporary evangelical churches. And like, there was coffee that you could bring into the sanctuary. And my parents were appalled by the idea that you could bring coffee into the sanctuary or like wear blue jeans, you know? They were like, this is not what church is.
Right.
So it was really interesting, you know, growing up in that context. It still surprises me. I have to say, it still surprises me that I work in religious life growing up in the home I grew up in. That is a testament to the magnificence and the profoundness of spirit that like I grew up with the experiences that I did in organized religion, and now I work in religious life. It's just, I still can't believe it. You know, it's been years now, and I'm like, how did I get here?
Like, I have to tell you that statement brings me to tears because I feel the same way in the completely opposite way. Like in that my family was very secular, very intellectual. You know, my mom wanted us to go to church, but we went to a Unitarian church until I was like 6.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like, and you're laughing, like for folks who don't know what a Unitarian church is, it's like the least churchy church that is possible.
Yeah.
Like
There's
lots of coffee,
spacious,
lots of coffee and blue jeans.
Yes.
Yeah. Like that Unitarian church had like a Wiccan subset, right?
Love it. Yes.
Right. I mean, like it was like that kind of vibe. And the fact that I have, you know, taken some role inside of a spiritual life for my profession and like what feels like my like personal calling also like says like what a profound and extraordinary, right? Like how vast spirit is.
Yeah.
That it can make space for everything.
Yes. Yes. It's the greatest sandbox. It's the greatest sandbox, period, because there's room for so much. And there's just room for so much. I feel very grateful. Even as like flummoxed as I am, I also feel very grateful.
Yeah. So what was it like, you know, in that transition then from like this, you know, rigid, maybe even dogmatic Christian household into, I mean, even into young adulthood? Like when I met you, I would not have described you as like a rigid Christian person.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's not right.
There was a lot of shedding. And I would even say, I would use a word like detoxifying and unlearning.
Right.
I think for me, I think I spent a lot of my adolescence and young adulthood really angry at the church as an institution, angry at my parents as people of faith who only gave me this very narrow perception of what God is, what faith is, and what church is. And that anger was necessary and I think really healing for me to express it, to understand it, and then to sort of return or to find my way through it so that I could return to a faith tradition that is home, but to return to a place in it that is more free and that seeks to create freedom for others and does not seek to replicate the bondage that I feel like I experienced and witnessed. I've witnessed a lot of bondage. I told this story in a theater company that I participate with and belong to that is located in Chicago. When I was maybe 12 years old, I remember being in worship. It was probably like a Wednesday night prayer service kind of deal. And I remember that the associate pastor's high school son was made to get up in front of the church community and confess that he had had sex and that he and his partner had conceived a child together. And he was sobbing. And I knew there was no reason for this, that he was being humiliated and that what he had done in his sex life with his partner was none of mine or anyone else's business.
Right.
And that God could not possibly be in this behavior because it felt
Of shaming and publicly humiliating.
exactly. It felt so full of shame and humiliation. I was like, this is not of God. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
And so I remember being angry for a long time, feeling like I wasn't in churches where Black women could serve in ways that Black men also serve. Which is to say,
Whoa, that's
yeah. Which is to say, I think I saw one Black female pastor in in all the churches that I grew up in between the ages of like 5 and 20. And she was the pastor because her husband was the pastor and they could be pastors together. You know?
That's the way that I've seen it.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
often.
But that was it. That there was no room for any gender diversity, no room for any sexuality diversity, and frankly, no interest in racial or spiritual diversity at all. And I spent a lot of my teens and 20s really angry that this is what I had been handed and told was Christianity.
Yeah. So from there, so I will say two things. One, you wrote an incredibly powerful essay
Thank you.
about being a Black woman in a yoga class. That I will absolutely link in the show notes because I think it's important for every human to read. But you've had quite a winding journey to get where you are now. I don't know. Maybe will you just tell people a little bit about
Absolutely.
sort of maybe the resume version of that, and then maybe what your life looks like now.
For sure. So, that's fun. So I think I would say that the part of the healing that I had to do involved embodiment for me, which points at and speaks to the way in which my spiritual practice and my ministry currently are so rooted in embodiment. But I will say more about that as we go. But yoga was also a huge resource and continues to be a huge resource for my relationship to my body, my relationship to the divine, and my understanding of the way the divine gave me a body, is in my body, is with me in my body. It's kind of this weird sort of shared way of being with spirit and like the small me, the small s self. I don't remember how old I was when I started practicing, but it was in college at some point. I remember that, like, oh my gosh, like Gaiam or like some contemporary new age catalog came to my parents' house and I seized it. And I was like, this is mine. You people will not know what to do with this. This is mine.
For whatever reason, the like parallel image I got is like the teenage boy who sneaks the Victoria's Secret catalog.
Yeah. So much like that. Yeah. And I remember like paging through it and like looking at mats and fountains and like little stools and little Buddha statues. I was like, I don't know what this world is, but I want more of this in my life. And like that is how I started practicing yoga. And when I graduated from college, I moved away for a short while and then moved back to Chicago and found some studios that really felt like they were like lily pads, you know, like stepping stones that were like, here is this practice. Here is a way to be with your breath and to relate to your nervous system and to feel the strength of your bones and your muscles in space. How does that affect your thinking mind? How does that affect your relationships? How does it affect the way you eat or the way you sleep or the way that you dress yourself or how you speak to people, you know? And I'm, again, so deeply grateful. I see the hand of the divine in the way in which those sort of lily pads led me to the studio in Chicago where I did my teacher training. It's called Tejas Yoga. It's still there. It's moved locations a couple of times, but I think right now it is in the, like it's in the financial district on like Jackson somewhere. For those of you who are in Chicago, Jim Bennett, James Tennant, co-owners, please go check it out. It's an incredible place. It is my good fortune and great blessing that I was trained there. I was able to teach there for several years while living and working in Chicago. And the two men who run that studio are a seminal part of who I am as a student of yoga, a teacher of yoga, and just a person in the world. And at that point, like I remember I was like, well, I want to take some teacher training. There's a studio over here. It's close. I'll go. And I think I was also in grad school, and Tejas was near Columbia College where I did my MFA in creative writing. And so I was like, oh, I'll check this out sometime while I'm downtown. And it was unlike any class I'd ever been to. It felt really full. I felt incredible at the end. It had a shavasana or a corpse pose, like a period of rest that was longer than like 60 seconds. And there was like, I have read such good teaching now that I'm real bougie about it. And I'm like, if your shavasana is shorter than 2 minutes, I don't want to hear from you, you know?
Oh, no. What are we doing?
And there was seated work afterward. There was breath work. There was contemplative work. And I was just like, these people know what yoga is and what it can do. And this is where I need to do my study. And that's what I did. During that time, I was also a client and then a volunteer and then a collective member at a radical feminist health center on the north side of Chicago called Chicago Women's Health Center. I think it is celebrating 50 years this year. It's amazing. That space emerged out of the Jane Collective that was at the University of Chicago in the 1960s. And again, as much as Tejas was formative, it was an incredibly formative space for me. That space was home when I needed somewhere to help me hold my own reproductive health journey. And I learned about my body. I learned about my period. I learned about how to care for myself. I learned about how to care for others, how to really listen. It was an amazing space. And so I think the two of those as communities of people and communities of practice collectively are the thing that led me into spiritual work. I didn't know it at either time. I didn't know that either space was going to be a part of that. But now I know that between those two, like I had no chance at not finding my way into spiritual work.
Right. Yeah. It's like the hand of spirit was like, no,
Yep.
no. You're just going to keep.
Exactly. And I think that they are both the reason now why reproductive justice is such an important part of my spiritual work. I can say that I'm not a person with children. I'm not a birthing person. I experienced uterine fibroids in my 20s and 30s, and I had a partial hysterectomy at the age of 34, 5, 3, like somewhere in there. And at that point, I wasn't worshiping anywhere regularly. I was practicing regularly. And I remember talking to my teachers at Tejas Yoga about like, I'm about to have this major surgery. My body is going to change. How do I use the practice to support me? And they had some really great feedback. Again, I learned some things that put me on the path that I'm on now that I would not have learned without that. But I also can look back at that time and say, wow, you know, what I really could have used in addition to all of the friends that I had who brought over food to our house or who brought gifts to the nurses or whatever, I really could have used someone to talk through how I felt about the idea of losing my capacity to bear a child biologically and how that might touch my faith. I mean, despite the fact that like I am not a parent on purpose, like I believe that there are all kinds of ways to make a family, and I do not want to have children. I've never really wanted to have children. So on some level, the loss of being able to biologically parent wasn't an enormous one, but on another level, it touched a lot for me. And I really could have used a human being to discuss that with and someone to listen and to ask questions about, you know, what female reproductivity has meant in my family and what it hasn't meant in my own life, and you know how I will find ways of identifying with my own creativity that aren't defined by my biology. And I didn't have anyone to do that with, you know. And I know a lot of women who have been through similar experiences who have also lacked a companion, maybe a guide at times, but mostly just like a sis or a friend who could come
Yeah.
alongside and bear witness and ask questions, you know? So that is also a part of that time in my life that put me on the path of reproductive spiritual care that I'm on now. So.
Yeah. What's the reason that feels so profound to me is it's something I've never, you know, even though we've talked about some of this before, it's never really, I always wanted to have children. Like from the time I was a little girl, I always thought I would have children. And probably the greatest crisis of faith in my life was getting to an age where it was becoming clear that I would not.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like, and I've done a lot of grief work about that.
Yeah.
And moved through it in a way that I actually feel okay with where I am now. But I don't think I've ever thought about it quite like that, about like this, the way that faith and spirit intertwines with that.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, the traditions that I grew up in, theology and let's call it sexism, I find to be quite intertwined, right? And so,
yes.
and that's just not in my own, like that's in society, that's in the air that we breathe and the water that we swim in, right? So there's this idea, whether it's internalized or not, whether it's expressed or not, that like not only are gender identities as femme folk built up and caught up in the capacity and the desire to be a parent, but also like that is why we've been created, to be fruitful and multiply. And so like if we choose not to, or if we want to and cannot, then what happens to our faith if that's what we've been handed, you know? So it's not simple.
No, it's not. It's sticky. It's sticky for real, you know? And then what is its purpose look like after that?
Right.
I don't really resonate with the idea of like legacy, which I know for a lot of people, like those two, it's like, you know, your children become your legacy. Like that's not, that doesn't feel like something that I have lost. But yeah, it's very like, what are you doing it for?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And what if you make terrible people? Like, is that really the legacy that you want? Despite your best efforts, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. So I think
Whew.
I treasure as a person who works with when I'm able to, right? I used to do this work a lot when I was working as a hospital chaplain. I am exploring what it means to work as a reproductive chaplain apart from a hospital system right now because I'm not working in one. But I treasure the opportunities that I get to come alongside birthing people or people who are considering how they want to make a family and to just be with them in whatever they're thinking through or feeling through, because it feels like a great gift to have a person who can do that with you. And I'm just like, oh, wow, you're sharing this with me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You know, how do I show up for you so that you're getting your needs met? This is great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, how did you end up in seminary, basically?
I went to India when in what year was it? 2017, maybe 18, somewhere around there. And I had this experience there. I was the only Black woman on this retreat. I was there for a month. For the first 2 weeks, I was there on retreat. And the last 2 weeks, my partner joined me and we just traveled and had a grand old time. But while I was on retreat, I was the only Black person there. And at that point in my practice, was really feeling the frustrations of the sort of larger yoga industrial complex and the ways in which it was failing the justice movement. And trying to talk about that with my fellow yogis, many of whom were white, and just did not want to hear from me about it. And I was like deeply frustrated. I've only ever been to India that one time. I really hope I get to go back because being there, I felt like, oh, I get why so much beauty and power and spirituality comes out of this earth. Like this feels like a vortex of something. You know what I mean? It was
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable. But I was there and I was just like feeling all this energy and like all of this profundity and also being confronted by all of this like white fragility and white supremacy and the way that it intersects with yoga culture and just maddening. And I had an experience, right? I was speaking to spirit and asking like, this sucks. I hate this. It hurts. What am I doing? What do I do? And I came home with that same question. What do I do? There must be somewhere that can teach me how to speak to followers of Christ about the idea that spirituality does not end at your neck, but that your body is a part of your walk as a follower of Christ, right? You know, if followers of Christ believe that God entered the plane of existence as a human in human form in the body that is Jesus. And if we believe that, we must be doing differently with the bodies that are on this plane of existence, right? If the body of Christ is as sacred and as holy as the body, right? Not like anything that got said or did or miracles, that's all great. But like the body is a part of that holiness. And if Christ has a body that is that holy, so do the rest of us. And if that is true, we are misusing and abusing one another's bodies in the work that we do on this earth, right? So like that was very clear in my head at that point.
Yeah.
But I think I came in like deep contrast with the idea that like, wow, these yogis out here, they feel the thing, but it's not leading them to any transformation. It's not leading them to understand that now I can't even say it that well. The power and the beauty that they experience, that like that oneness, that eighth limb of yoga. What is it now? See, I'm showing my
Samadhi.
ignorance.
No, you're doing great.
The the intersection that is beyond all separation
Yeah.
has a consequence on this earth, right? It's again not just the thing that we get to when we're sitting on our mat, but we can manifest that in line at the grocery store, with our vote, with the way that we spend our money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right.
Yeah.
So I came home from India feeling like there must be some way that I can figure out how to talk to yogis about justice and how to talk to followers of Christ about the body. Where do I learn to do it? Who is it? Who's doing it? How do I do it? And divinity school, seminary was the answer that kept coming back over and over and over again. And I applied to a couple of schools in Chicago, and I applied to Yale because a dear friend of mine is the dean of the Andover Newton Theological Seminary, which is now at Yale Divinity School. And she was an influential part of my discernment process. That's what the Christians call it when we're trying to think through, are we being called into ministry? What's happening right now? We call it discernment. CP and I visited a bunch of seminary schools, and we had a drinking game where anytime we heard the word discernment, we had to take a sip. So you can wait for this out. Anyway, CP is my partner, my husband. So I was telling a friend of mine that I was in this process, just trying to figure this out. And she was like, you need to apply at Harvard Divinity School. And I was like, oh, yeah, all right, sure, fine. And she said, no. My sister went to school there. She studied Buddhism and she loved it. The whole place looked like Hogwarts. You got to go. And I was like, all right, what the hell? I'll throw my hat in the ring. And I did. And I was accepted at all the schools that I applied to. And I visited them. And something at Harvard was alive. It was like flame, And I was like, there is something here that I can't get anywhere else. And, for me, it felt like it was very much about the multicultural nature of their divinity school, right?
It's one of the only ones.
Yeah, emerged historically from like the Congregationalist / Unitarian traditions, but that was literally 400 years ago, right? And like it exists now in what I would say is a profoundly multicultural place, right? There's so much Buddhist study and Muslim study, in addition to any other number of traditions that are taking place there. And the people at Harvard were really friendly and excited about the work that they were doing, excited about the work that I wanted to do. They were brilliant. My classmates are some of the smartest people I've ever known. And so it made it just really clear, like, this is the place I need to be. So my partner and I moved our lives, sold our home, and we moved from Chicago to Boston. And again, it was an amazing, challenging transition. I started in fall of 2019, and the world closed in March of 2020. And so it was really interesting to be in divinity school during the pandemic, I was also a lot older than many of my classmates. So I had been back to school before. And so, and I was also incredibly lucky to have a spouse who was able to keep his job during the pandemic, who worked from home. So we weren't at risk, So my pandemic experience was just blessed, and it was a kind of crucible. Like I remember taking a January term class that was about monastic life. And on some level, I sort of felt like I was in this little vowed community of two in my little hutch house, for the better part of a year and a half,
Yeah.
And then like my last year of school, we were able to go back and be in person with each other. And so I've met people that I had only ever seen virtually. And I met people I'd never seen before. The new sort of class of first years were like, oh, here we are, and we're back, and oh my gosh, and it was really special. Like it was hard as fuck. I don't want to lie about it, but it was also like just so much learning, and I have a lot of gratitude for having gotten to study there and having gotten to study at that time. So I wound up there because I knew that there was something that I needed to figure out how to do. And it was the only place that I think I could have figured out how to do it. And I'm still learning how to do it. I don't want to sound like, so now I've got that lesson and I'm just out. Like, that's not the case.
Yeah, I know.
But, but it was the workshop that I needed It was one of the first and few places where I was like, oh, I get to decide what Christianity looks like. I don't have to resist against what I'm being told Christianity looks like. Oh, I get to decide what it means to be a woman of faith with a dynamic sexuality. I don't have to believe that if I fall outside of this heteronormative paradigm, that I am somehow outside of the will of God or of relationship with God. Like, so it was incredibly freeing and really, really, really special.
Yeah. So what is your like daily experience of spiritual life look like as a working pastor, as a reverend?
Yes. I am lucky that often it is solitary. I did not know how important time alone was to me until I recognized how much time I was spending putting out with other people. So if I don't get to spend some time alone, I suffer, and you can see it in my behavior and my choices. Like I feel sharper and I feel less patient, and that's not good. So I spend maybe the first, again, if I'm lucky, if I'm not sleeping in, and if I'm lucky, I spend the first hour or two of the day on my own in my practice. And I have returned to a particular kind of physical practice in my yoga practice called Ashtanga yoga. So the yogis that are your listeners will know what that means. But if you're not, Ashtanga is it's a particular kind of physical yoga practice. It has a very ordered structure of postures that you practice typically 6 days a week. You rest 1 day a week and you rest on the new moon and the full moon. I'm going slow, which is new for me, but very important. And I am not demanding or grasping or pulling at any kind of physical achievement, right? I am using this practice to be with my breath, be with my body, and watch my mind. And that those feel like very elemental and seminal parts of my spiritual practice. After I rest, I sit at my altar. I often chant. That's a part of my spiritual practice, either externally or internally. And there's a lot of prayer. I have an icon of a picture of, it's called Christ Pantocrator. And I saw this first in the Center for the Study of World Religions at Harvard Div. It's in that building. It's this little picture of Christ, and he is holding a book in one hand and is sort of doing the mudra of don't fear with the other.
Yeah.
And right down the middle, one side of Christ looks like one way and the other side of Christ looks the other way. And they're not hugely different, but they're different in such a way that if you put a mirror on like right down the middle of the what is that? Horizontal or no, vertical horizon of Christ, you get a reflection that is one way and then a reflection that is the other way. And the idea is like, this is the divine Christ. This is the human Christ. And so I have that hanging above my altar on the wall. And I also have an illustration of Parvati being the sort of incarnation of the goddess, who is the wife of Shiva. And in this illustration that I colored in, I made a copy of it out of some book and that I colored it in. She is standing in like sort of standing half lotus with a little mala, a little Rudraksha mala in her hand and chanting in like a stream. And so it's this idea of like this devoted brahmacharini yogini who is like in her practice. And like those two are on my wall, and I speak to them a lot about what I am cultivating, where I am struggling, what I am releasing, whatever, a fight with somebody, how I'm feeling that day, what I'm afraid of, you pray, you just pray about stuff. At work, my spiritual practice is on a day of worship is very structured, right? It revolves around the worship practice.
Sure.
I get to preach once every month or so, maybe, like that'll pick up a little bit in the new year. And one thing that I have learned about myself that has made a bit of a splash in this community that I wasn't really expecting, but that is I preach barefoot. I don't know why or when. I mean, I know why, but I don't know when I started knowing that that is what I needed to do. But there is something about having shoes on while I am preaching specifically that I find deeply distracting. And it's like, I think it has something to do with feeling the earth and like trusting that the words that I put together and the movement of spirit move better when my feet can feel the earth.
Yeah.
Carrie Maloney is the name of the chaplain and the director of religious and spiritual life at Harvard Divinity School. And she told me once that a sermon is an opportunity for you, one, the person who is preaching, to speak to God, and other people are bearing witness. And I've never forgotten that. And I think a lot about the people I am speaking to, preaching with, the people who are sharing that experience with me. But I also really try to remember that, like, there is something that is happening on a horizontal or a vertical plane. I keep confusing those. There's something that's happening on a vertical plane that I just need to surrender to. And so I don't wear shoes in support of that surrender,
Yeah.
And that is
it makes visceral sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said it, and I was like, that seems so obvious. Why does any reverend wear shoes? And it was like, what? Why is that? And I understand why it's so. The feet, in so many ways, are like my favorite metaphor for like all of this, right? It's like, we could zoom all the way out and think about like, the Easter, preciousness of washing people's feet, right? That's like and that in the yoga tradition, like when you meet your guru or you meet some holy person, you touch their feet, right? Like may the sand from the bottom of your feet clear the mirror of my heart, right? Like that's the and thinking about things like the path that people have walked and like how holy all of that is, but also if your feet are not strong and supple, everything in your body suffers.
That's right.
Every single thing. Yeah. Everything. And we have like, I think about what you said at the beginning about like feeling as though you had been given this like tiny pathway for like what God or worship or church could be. And it's like, right, like, okay, you're gonna wrap your feet in these tight little shoes. And like I had one teacher who called them leather coffins.
Oh, so true.
Right?
Wow.
But it's like, okay, we're gonna fit your humanity, your spirit, your divinity into this tiny little
box. Yeah. And then like you teeter around on it all day. Yeah.
Yeah. And suffer because, I mean, especially women, right?
Yeah.
And like anyway, I'm sure there are many dissertations that have been written about the holiness of the feet.
Yeah.
And like all of the anthropological experiences of that. I just love that you do that so much.
It just feels right, and I shared it with this community that I'm serving right now because I didn't want them to see my feet and then be like appalled. And so I was like, yes, you're not hallucinating. Do not adjust your television sets. Those are my feet. I'm not wearing shoes. That is how I throw down. That's between me and spirit. You can feel how I feel about it, however you want to feel about it. But let's take a breath together, and now let's move on and talk about what we're going to talk about today. So,
yeah. The world is really hard right now. I think it's a really both intense and powerful and maybe even overwhelming time to be in service of a congregation, to be preaching the word, whatever that means for you. What is there a spiritual principle that feels like an anchor for you, that feels like a guiding light for you in these days?
Mm-hmm. There is, and it's going to sound cheesy, but it's not. It is the most radical thing that I can think of. And it is love. And it's not like, it's just not an accident. So I want to answer this question by sharing something with you that I learned about a week ago today. You might know about this. I just didn't. And this is a testament to how diverse my training has been. I do not I distinguish seminary from divinity school, right? I did not attend a seminary, which is to say I did not do what some people do in their religious training, which is like, this is the tradition I'm going to go deep into. And I'm like, yes, I had that, but I also wanted to go wide. So anyway, I learned about something last week called the Barman Statement, I think is what it's called. It was put forth by a handful, I think 2, but maybe more, Lutheran churches in Germany during the Third Reich, during Nazi Germany, right? Before and during World War II. A very a la Dietrich Bonhoeffer. This statement of like, we know what is happening. This way in which Hitler is using the German church to advance the agenda of Nazism and authoritarianism in this country is out of line with scripture. We do not consent to this. We will not concede to this. There is no God but God. Christ is our Führer, essentially. This is what someone said about this, right? And I was in a conversation with other lay leaders and ministers about the times that we are in right now and what it looks like for us as individuals, for our congregations, for our small groups, for our denomination to draft a statement like this, right? And I mean, it is time, right? So I name that as a kind of love, as a love that is unequivocal, right? That knows who and what Christ is and is not. That knows the difference between loving your neighbor as yourself and a practice of, I don't know. I just keep using, this is really crass, but I just keep using the word like fluffing. You know what I mean? Like a practice like fluffing the powerful and the rich in pursuit of a little of that sugar spilling into what we have and what we want and what we need, right?
Yeah.
And so love is the thing that is my guiding principle. How do I love the people? How does my love protect the people? How do I love myself? How do I love Christ, right? And how do I do so in a way that is beyond lip service? How do I engage in a love that makes me uncomfortable, that puts me at risk, that invites others to put themselves at risk? And that question is not a simple one for me. Like as a queer identifying Black woman, I feel like I'm generally at risk. And so to choose to love in a way that puts me at risk is not an easy thing for me to do. And so when do I choose it? And when do I discern? I think God wants me to protect myself right now and not put my body on the line. But I think I can invite these white people with privilege and money and means to put their bodies on the line. You know?
Truly.
And so like, I believe in that. And I believe that there are moments when God gives me the strength, the capacity, the courage, right? Because it's not bravery, but it is courage to put my own body at risk. But it's not all day, every day. And it's not in all things and for all things, you know? But so like, that is what I mean when I say love. I don't mean this sort of sweet kumbaya, let's all feel good. I mean, shit is real out here. Being in community with people that you disagree with is challenging. And it is the thing that keeps us alive. Loving people in a way that the people who exist on the margins that we pretend we can't see, but that brings them in close, makes us uncomfortable. But that is what we have to do. That is what Christ asks us to do. That is what our walk demands of us as followers, and it is also what it means to love. So I keep just like the thing that I'm moving deeper into is that tradition of love, that practice of love, and how do we keep doing it in a way where we might not always feel safe, but we know that we are with God, and we know that the love that we are living into is right for all. It's not just right for some. It's not just right for billionaires or one percenters, but it's out here for everybody. That I think is the lodestar for me. It is the thing that I keep just trying to pivot toward.
Yeah. I'm like receiving all of that. Like for whatever reason, the thing that my mind keeps coming back to, it's not for whatever reason. It's because I just finished teaching a class about the Devi Mahatmyam, which is right. And what I learned in this round is that tejas is the word that is used to describe when this giant demon has taken the world, and the devas, the like divine beings, have their little meeting to be like, okay, how did this happen, and what do we do about it?
Yeah.
And that Shiva hears the story and gets so angry, right, that his face begins to burn white hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from him shines this extraordinary bright light. And tejas is the word that is used to describe that. Brilliance, radiance. It is this, but it's not like, it's like staring at the sun. Right.
Yeah.
And it is the tejas of all of the devas, right, that form together to create this mountain of fire. And out of the mountain comes Durga. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who then goes and defeats the demon. Right.
That's
And
right.
it's like, and I'm just like, right, it's that.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know when we got confused about love being some like tender, wishy-washy, gooey thing.
Yeah.
That like love when it's challenged, love when it's up against injustice, when it's up against cruelty and greed, right? Which is all the things in my Shastra, right, represents all that buffalo demon is like the fear that rages into horrifying behavior.
Yeah.
That like the natural and like fiercely loving response to that is fury.
Yeah.
That the power of that fury is what transforms. And
we are going to transform this. Capital T. Yeah.
Capital T, transform. And it is like our holy rage coming together to form this like unstoppable bright light of love. Right. I'm just like that. Sign me like that is sign me up for that.
Yeah.
So when people, right, it's like maybe the most quoted verse of the Bible. I am not Christian. I'm not a biblical
You're
scholar,
fine.
but like, God is love. That tracks for, I'm like, oh yes, that is that.
That's it. That's all we were made to do is love God and love each other. That's it. Right. I mean, again, those of us who are following that walk, right. I'm not labeling or projecting or anything. Like if that is the paradigm that makes sense to you, that is why you exist, is to love yourself, to love your spirit, and to love those of you on the same plane, to love one another. That's it. No, it's not always fun. No, it's not always easy, but that's what you have to do, and do it again and do it again. And when you suck at it, because you will, because I do, we all do, right?
Truly.
You ask for help.
Same.
You say like, I'm trying to love. I want to love. This is how it's hard. What do I do? Show a way, make a thing, like whatever the thing is, fix it. Help me. Or if you're not going to fix it, then be here with me, because I can't do this by myself, And like, I pray that I
fumble through this.
That's right. I pray that prayer a lot. Yeah.
I mean, that feels like then the next question is like, what is the practice? Like, is your practice, the question I always ask is like, what is the practice that is like protecting you? What is the practice that is moving you through right now? I imagine you have a lot of them. You've already talked about a lot of them.
I think, honestly, the place where I am working the most. So like that like practice space where I'm like experiencing the most challenge or resistance is like loving into myself, you know? Um, so when I love myself well, I can love other people brilliantly. But when I don't love myself well, it's harder. And so it feels very practical right now. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting enough water? Am I getting enough time alone? Am I reading the things I want to read and as much as I want to read them? Am I um, so I have a real heart for the Christian mystics in like medieval England, Spain. Like I wrote my graduating thesis from HDS about Julian of Norwich, who was a 14th,
Yes.
okay, 14th century English mystic.
All is well and all will be
Yes,
well.
and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And I've been listening to the autobiography of Teresa of Avila lately on an audiobook, and it's just like I am just charmed by how terrible and miserable she thinks she was, and it's really delightful. But so I turn a lot toward desert mothers and like Christian mystic women who are like, don't get between me and my God, and whose day to day life is about that. Who are in their huts in the desert, unwashed and just sacred, just offering, just continuing to offer, continuing to like prostrate. And I think about like, okay, what is my day-to-day life? How am I caring for myself? Because I am God's vessel, right? And again, that sounds really like arrogant. I don't mean for it to. We are all God's vessel. God is pouring into all of us. And so because God is pouring into me, how am I tending to this container so that I can receive what God is pouring into me and then let it shine out and do what God needs it to do? Um, and so it's really very like, how am I eating? How am I sleeping? How am I reading? How am I writing? Like very, very practical, tending to myself in a way that allows me to give over to others the things that I want to give and have to give. Yeah.
That's I think the number one job of folks at like I will humbly say like in our profession is like to tend to the vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here right now going, why is it so fucking hard?
Yeah.
Why is it so hard? I mean, and maybe that's like the entire, the entire statement, the entire question.
I think you're right. It is really hard. It is harder than it feels like it has ever felt, between I think part of what the pandemic did for us is it really uplifted how terrible health inequities are in this country, social determinants of health, et cetera, right? And I think that we have not recovered from that collective trauma. And I think that that is what gives way to the authoritarian regime that we are currently experiencing, currently trying to dig our way out from underneath. And if I'm speaking personally, trying to destroy, trying to destruct so that we can rebuild, right? I saw this amazing video on Instagram the other day about like what typically happens when authoritarianism like this takes place in a nation, and like how it doesn't really change. We just think that it changes, and like, oh shit, if we're going to do this better for all of the people, we might have to burn it down, and I, comparatively speaking, like I have a lot of friends who are like, we done had to burn this shit down. You know what I mean?
I heard so many people who I really trust and admire, and it was so hard for me to hear say that the reason that, I mean, even, 8 years ago, the reason that they voted the way that they did is because they knew the system didn't work as it was. They were tired of perpetuating sort of a soft shoe, sworn and dance, like maybe it was working. And I have often thought that, if Hillary had won in 2016, that every every cushy middle-class white woman would have just like rested on her laurels and put her feet up and said, great, we had a Black president, we had a woman president. We are complete.
Yeah.
We are a post-racial,
Mhm.
society, and everything is fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I fucking hate
Yeah.
that we have to be where we are right now for like really it's so interesting. Like, I don't talk about astrology all that much on this podcast, but some like the archetype, the metaphor of the Pluto return is so profound to me in this moment that it is like everything that was true, all of the deepest, darkest cracks about you from the beginning are now being stress tested. And they are all rising to the surface. Like, all men were not created equal when we wrote this. Like when from the beginning. And the founders and the folks I just finished reading this book about the Constitution when they wrote the Constitution and how much internal conflict, and that so much of that was even then, like, slavery is not a thing that we can keep doing.
Yeah. Wow.
But they understood that in order to get all of the then colonies to sign on, they had to compromise, right? And that's one of the places that they did. What a place to fucking compromise.
Yeah.
You know? Like, we will compromise on the humanity. We will compromise on humanity in order for this nation to be born.
To be formed. Yeah.
And that's what we're reckoning with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on one hand, I hate that we have to do it. And then on an individual personal level, I know that every single time, every single spiritual awakening I have ever had was precipitated by an absolute and utter breakdown.
Absolutely. Something had to hurt first. Yeah. Yeah. Because that kind of change does not take place if you don't know what it costs you to remain the same.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And how tempting it is. I mean, I love that you use the word courage, right? Because it is tempting, you know, for those of us who, you know, it's like, I'm a mostly cis het white woman, right? Like, born into a female body, upper middle class family, privilege of education, and you know, winning the lottery of being born in the late 20th century. Like, be real about that. Like, my quality of life is pretty great.
Yes.
And to understand what it must mean to put all of that on the line, right? It's like, how bad does it have to be for other people to be like, okay, I'm willing to put my like my comfortable life and my iPhone and my Netflix on the line
at risk. Yeah.
For our collective humanity.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot tolerate watching people be disappeared. I cannot tolerate people going hungry when there is food.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there is food wasting. I mean, obviously that was happening before this, but like,
right.
Yeah, it's a real, in many ways, it's like a real spiritual crisis. And I keep thinking about the story that you told about that young man in your family church, and that is what Christianity looks like for so many people who have political power, right?
Yeah.
Christianity looks like a power for shame and public humiliation and control.
Yeah. Who would defend and argue this is why these things happen the way that they do, and this is why they should happen the way that they did, you know? I mean, and so I recently started reading a text called A People's History of Christianity.
Okay.
And one of the things, I'm teaching my first confirmation class this year. And so
let's say that. I'm excited for those kids.
Yeah, I am teaching the confirmation class I would have wanted. And so we're going to talk about
the history of Christianity and the way that it connects to the history of other religious traditions in the world, and some of the things that we sort of shade and shadow when we talk about how this tradition was born from a brown man in a brown Jewish man in Palestine to what it has become now in various parts of the world, right?
Yeah.
And how, I think about the way in which in the story of Jesus that is told in the Christian Testament, the way in which Jesus spoke to people of power and spoke to people of not power, of like the people who are judged and persecuted by members of the community that Jesus shared. The way that Jesus spoke to women, the way that Jesus spoke to tax collectors, and like nothing about shaming people, nothing about pointing fingers, or nothing about sarcasm. I feel like I see or hear in the language of Christ. Now, I hear and see plenty of like impatience and frustration. And my favorite moments are when Jesus is like, I can't deal with you people, and has to go lie down. Those are my favorite moments. I'm like, yes, thank you.
It's like,
Please
I
give-
just can't. I just can't with this right now.
But like, even for the folk that Christ knew, like, you need to grow. Like, even for those folks, there is no one up, one down. There is no greater than, less than. There is like, come on. If you are telling me what you think you are, then the answer to the question you're asking me already. Like, come on,
Yeah.
So I just like, I'm thinking about what you were just saying, and like, how has this tradition been weaponized by the empire? I mean, again, that's a history that is thousands of years old, but it's real. And if we don't reckon with it, then we continue to align with the empire and allow the empire to use this tradition that has love and justice at its center, to use it for oppression and theft and destruction of humanity. And that's just not what it is. And it's not how it was built.
Yeah. One of the things that I just believe to my core is like there is a natural progression, and like all spiritual progressions is not linear,
Mm-hmm.
that goes from like, I am suffering
Mm-hmm.
to something bigger than me can help.
Mm-hmm.
And through the connection to that, I mean, this is the path of yoga, understanding that I am connected to every other being.
Mm.
And when I am connected to every other being, I recognize that every being that suffers is my suffering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that until we are all free, none of us is free.
Yes. Period. That's
Right.
it.
I just go like, it
Yeah.
feels so like natural to me that like that is the truth.
Mm-hmm. And that we all can be free, right? Because I think some people stop at that place of like, oh, well, if I'm
Yes.
free, you have to be in bondage. We can't both be free. And I'm like, no, no,
Right.
no, no, no.
Yeah. In order for me to be free, I need you to not be free.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah,
we can all be free. We must all be free. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that until we're all free,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
What
like
feels like
that's
freedom is actually not free. It's just a different kind of bondage. Yeah.
exactly. Like it is another kind of suffering. It is
Mhm.
like the way you treat the least of us is the
Yeah.
way you
Yeah.
treat all of us.
That's right.
You know, that is and it is wild. It makes me feel like I'm going insane a little.
Mhm.
When I'm
Mhm.
like, isn't that, but that seems like really clear, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. Super
And
obvious.
it is not clear or obvious,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
to certainly the ruling class at the moment.
Yes. Yes. And this is
What?
another reason why I'm just writing down what you said. The way you treat the least of us is the way you treat all of us. I love that. This is another reason why I think in the last maybe 5 years, in the last 5 years, hope has become a part of my spiritual practice as well. And kind of belligerently, like against my will. because anger is a very meaningful emotion for me. It's easy for me to access my anger. I'm angry about a lot. I'm angry often. And there's a lot to be angry about in the world. And so I don't really have any shame about my anger. I'm fine. I'm pissed. And because I am so comfortable in anger, I am not often hopeful. But hope does feel like, for me, an invitation that I'm offered by Spirit. Like, yes, honey, you can be angry. There is a lot to be angry about. And also, I want you to believe that all manner of things shall be well. I want you to act as though all manner of things shall be well. I want you to love as though and live as though that is true. That is like the truth true, And so I get angry and I invite challenge and I invite growth. And I also really try to hope. I really try to hope because I think I have to. I know I'm being asked to. And I think there is good in it. I think that even though I'm kind of like, I guess, like about it, I really think there is good in it. And again, not in a shallow, vapid kind of like, it's all gonna work out. Like not that way. But like in a, I can continue to practice loving you because I have hope, as opposed to just throwing up my middle finger and walking off. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that. So I didn't say that earlier, but I think hope is also a big part of my practice. And it's the most challenging part right now.
I really needed to hear that today.
Mm.
And I think I'm probably not the only person listening who
Mm.
needed to hear that.
Mm.
And it feels like a really beautiful place for us to press pause for today.
Okay.
Is there anything else that that Spirit needs you to share before we close?
I love you. I love you, Vera. I love your listeners. I love the people who are still listening who are like, what the F is she talking about? Like, I just, you're real and it's real and we are here and we are in this together, and like, follow your breath. Don't stop breathing and, reach out because this is, what I say when I meet new people or when I'm offering the welcome in the church that I serve. I say, because you are here, the body of Christ is whole and perfect on this day, right? And I learned that at my home church, which is back in Massachusetts. But it's true. Like, I say it because it's true. I say it all the time. Like, we need you. I need you. Like, so get what you need. Put your fingers in the thing that is going to keep you alive and keep you breathing and stepping. And I will try to do the same. And we have each other and we are here for each other. That is the last thing I need to say.
Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for tuning in, Curious Hearts. If this episode was useful, I hope you'll follow the show or leave a review or share it with somebody who you think needs it. And if you're craving support on your own spiritual path or seeking some meaningful work, you can find ways to work with me at veralester.com. Otherwise, until next time, please stay grounded in that curiosity that you've got and keep turning towards what matters. See y'all soon.